Modern Warfare 2's launch weekend rolls on, and as we gear up for the first full week ahead, you may be like me and thinking, wow, I'm not doing as well as I'd like to be. So how can we change that? Today, we're going to be running down our annual Tips to Improve guide, giving you some hopefully helpful pointers in-game and out to craft the best possible experience and chance to do as best as you possibly can. As we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Am I missing out on anything here glaring tip-wise that you'd like to add? Feel free to drop your tips down below. I mean, we're all here for the same reason, to improve and to do better, so feel free to add anything you feel helpful. If you enjoy the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare 2. We still have so much here that you won't want to miss. If you'd like to help us out on the road to 600,000 subscribers, wonder how close we can push towards that before Warzone 2 and DMZ launches, but either way, if you'd like to join us, I'd love to have you in the community. And final notes, we'll be live on Twitch here a ton this week with drops enabled, so if you'd like to join the community over there and get some free loot in the process, links in the description below. And finally, it's your last few hours to take advantage of that GamerAdvantage $50 cash back deal while using code ESPRESSO, but more on them later, link in the description below there as well. For now, let's talk about Modern Warfare 2 and how best to improve. So let's start before we jump into the game at all. There's a few things that we definitely should go over, definitely should master before we even get into the game. Firstly, mastering your Gunsmith is very important. The new leveling system allows for a lot of weapons on offer this year, but also ways that you can actually progress your weapon loadouts without having to grind an absurd amount of time in a singular gun. As the attachment system sometimes has specific attachments shared universally across weapons. Optics are a great example here of this. If you like an optic, you can grind out one certain weapon, like I'm going to be grinding out the Expedite 12 to level 7 so I can get a blue dot reticle. So only 7 weapon levels and then something I can use on every single gun from here on until the end of Modern Warfare 2 support. Though this perhaps may be both good and bad, because while again, in theory, you can grab your preferred attributes like that blue dot relatively easily by unlocking a couple of weapons, couple of weapon levels, and you can use that the entire time. On the other hand, you oftentimes are forced to level up weapons that might not necessarily be your jam instead of just leveling up the weapons you want to level up and having those attachments granted for that specific weapon. So it really comes down to which side of the coin you end up falling on, but either way, crafting your Gunsmith also is something we need to focus on overall, because this year's weapon builds, I would probably say ADS, sprint to fire times, and damage range are the attributes you want to play around with and tweak the most if at all possible. If you move around the map constantly, your ADS time may be your biggest enemy, because if you're sprinting, even if you camera someone by jumping a corner, you still might not get that gun up quick enough. At a distance, damage drop-off is absolutely wild in this game so far, so if you can extend those damage ranges via barrels and such, you'll do a bit better for that longer range. So for me, those are the 3 areas of main focus that I would recommend here in crafting your weapon and going forward, trying to build the best possible weapon for yourself. Now, next, perk packages are an integral part here of the creative class and gameplay systems, though if you are just jumping in, you haven't really grinded out your main levels for your military ranks just yet. The downside early on is that you're going to need to level a lot in order to make these really worthwhile. A lot of what I'd consider the most important perks, perhaps even crutch perks, take a while to get. Focus isn't available until level 50 in your bonus slot, quick fix is in the 40s, and so on and so forth. So there's definitely some that you're going to need to grind out for a bit, though there are some default perk packages with decent perks, but maybe not all that you'd want, that ideal sort of package, as if you could craft your own and make it with whatever perks you want. Like, there's one with Ghost if you're someone that likes to stay off the radar, but with that default package, you can't take Overkill as well. Or oppositely, if you don't care about Overkill, you can't take Ghost, but you'll have things like Hardline and Quick Fix on those default perk packages as well, which that's actually what I've been using the most. There's another one, Fast Hands and High Alert if you wanted. So grinding out those first couple of levels to give your preferred perk package so that you can customize it, definitely something you just got to kind of power through. But then from there, make sure you build it how you want to. Now, as for streaks, before we jump into, again, more gameplay stuff, streaks, if you're somebody that likes score streaks, you play the objective a lot, well, this year you're in luck, because we do have just that simple toggle of score streaks to kill streaks by using your right trigger in that streak selection menu. So it is something you want to keep in mind so that you can approach your gameplay however you'd like. Now, beyond that, the only thing before we jump into actual in-game tips is getting some of your settings down. Sensitivities, tac sprint behavior, aim response curve type, have that to dynamic. Again, we talked about that in our settings video that broke it all down a little further. Weapon mount, exit delay, quick C4 detonation, and so on and so forth. One big thing for those on console is that, as we've mentioned, while we did have it in Cold War, while we had it in Vanguard, this is the first Modern Warfare game with an FOV slider on console. So if you end up adjusting your FOV, one thing that I'd highly recommend is making sure that you have affected set as your ADS field of view. This will allow that ADS FOV to be scaled accordingly to whatever value you have your FOV set to. If it's on independent, it will zoom back into that default 80 FOV's ADS viewpoint, no matter how high you go with your FOV, which if you have it at 120 and then it scales back down to that 80 ADS FOV, it can be a little nauseating to go from such a massive change in viewpoint. Now, jumping into game now, finally, let's start with your weapon selection. Not to double back on the Gunsmith or anything, but more so talking about what will give you the most success. In Modern Warfare 2 so far, rifles definitely feel to be the dominant category to me, at least initially. There are some SMGs that are pretty solid. There are some snipers that are pretty good. Shotguns, I've played around with a decent bit that they do their job for where you'd want them to in close quarters, but again, you're not going to really challenge anything mid to long range with it. But rifles, they definitely feel like the sort of overall most versatile weapon category. There's a hefty amount of them that do well. We know the TAC 56 is good. We know that M4 is good, both from the beta, but honestly, I was having a really good time with the Kastov 762 and the 545 ahead of that 74U earlier while leveling things. Also, both of those Kastov platforms, they feel really good for mobility too, which is something that you can't really say about some other weapons like LMGs, battle rifles. They feel a bit clunky, so being able to run around and kind of rush a bit with those weapons feels great. It was a nice departure of the slow-paced gameplay that you have in your first couple of levels while ranking up. Now, additionally, take some time to learn the basic weapon recoil patterns. This is something that will likely come naturally over time the more weapons you use and how frequently you use specific ones, but if you want to jump on mastering those weapons, go to the firing range, something that, while it is bare bones, we at least have this year. Shoot at the wall, see what the pattern is like, and then account for that while shooting and pulling down on your right stick. A lot of weapons, while there is some horizontal recoil, obviously the most apparent is vertical recoil. So for a lot of weapons, you can just slightly pull down on your right thumbstick while in a gunfight, and it should mitigate recoil a decent bit. Now, talking about gunfights, one big thing with Modern Warfare 2 is having your gun up and being ready for a gunfight. Because of the TTK, because of previously mentioned ADS speeds being slow, you're going to run into so many people who are pre-aiming things, and as unfortunate as it is, I hate it personally, but it's just the nature of the game. It's the reality that's something we have to deal with and air quote adapt to. So while you can still rush around and everything like that, just being ready for that gunfight, anticipating where an enemy may be coming from, it'll definitely win you more gunfights than you'll lose. Now, while you can also still do it, strafing this year just isn't as beneficial, which is kind of a bummer since the strafe speed by default is so low. So if you slow peek every corner you approach, that's kind of about the opposite of giving yourself an advantage in a gunfight. You're not going to be breaking cameras like jumping or sliding did in prior games. You're just going to be inching your way around the corner like, "What's up, guys? You need anything?" And then potentially dying to somebody pre-aiming that corner you were coming around. Now, additionally, you got to recognize the pacing change, compounding on that sort of gun up and ready talking point. I hate to say this, but this game was built to play much slower. It seems like Infinity Ward has this affinity for much slower gameplay the last couple of years. So while you can find success rushing into every situation, for reasons we just mentioned, it's unlikely you'll be guaranteed that success. Not saying to go full Sentinel mode and sitting in a corner the entire game not moving, but recognize that sometimes there's a time to rush in and a time not to. That's one of the things that I definitely need to work on for me the most, I think. I really enjoy those Leroy Jenkins moments and going all out, pushing into B flag in a singular choke point perhaps, but I also, while not playing and looking at it objectively, realize that's not a great game plan with this game. You can play aggressive, you can play fast paced, but recognize that tonal shift and managing the differences in gameplay that will occur in each match. Be mindful of those abysmal sprint out times and watch your usage of tac sprint so that you don't get caught in the worst possible sprint out delay. Now, in some strategic terms, power positions are absolutely everything. Whether it be 6v6 or ground war, every single map has power positions that you can control if you'll do well. Unfortunately, for the ground war part of that discussion, a lot of that is rooftops, so you're going to have minimal entry points up to those rooftops. Oftentimes, it's either jumping out of the large helicopters down onto the rooftops or hoping the enemy's not pre-aiming that one ladder up to the rooftop. For 6v6, it really comes down to another talking point, though, in finding those power positions where movement and map traversal are going to be incredibly key as well. Once we start to learn the flow of these maps, more power positions will emerge both in public and some competitive play. So finding those power positions, circumnavigating them perhaps for flanks, that can help you out greatly as well, taking your opponent by surprise. Now, beyond that, information is everything. I say this every year almost, it seems like, and it's something that still rings true. Information truly is everything, especially in the context of being ready for a gunfight. One big thing that can still be beneficial is reading your minimap. Even if we do not have dots on it this year, you can absolutely be aware of where players likely will be by gauging the dead zones on that minimap. If you don't see teammates in an area on the minimap, chances are there's enemies around there. If you're in the middle of that dead zone, well, you want to be careful because it's very possible you're in enemy territory. Additionally, something that can really help you out is picking streaks that give you information. UAVs, advanced UAVs, both great options. Lethals are always fun, yes, but depending on what you want out of your streak, sometimes I'd take the UAV and advanced UAV over any others. This is entirely preference-based and subjective. Like for me, I do my best to showcase like gun streaks here in gameplay that you'll see on the channel. Very rarely, I think only in the beta and then up to here is when I've recently used like lethal streaks as well with the helicopters. But for me, UAVs and advanced UAVs are very important because I get the information on where those gun kills come from and I can elongate that streak as a result. Somewhat unrelated to the gameplay itself, if you have a headset, play with that. You'll have much more spatial awareness and be able to pick out key audio cues that can help you stay alive longer, as opposed to if you're playing just on a TV speaker set or something like that. The audio, while it can come through pretty well, you can play at a high volume, hear a lot of things, just the EQ and how everything is mixed is incredibly different for headphones versus a regular TV speaker. So if you play it like a monitor or something like that, you have the option to play with a headset, highly recommend it. And finally, the last thing that we'll talk about is playing in a party. Again, following information is key. Having another set of eyes or multiple, a group of people who know your specific callouts perhaps and that mesh well with you, that you know how you'll play, you'll be able to have those trades. It just makes your gameplay experience way more enjoyable and of course, way easier too. If you know where enemies are because your teammates are making callouts, well, obviously you can adjust your gameplay, your positioning to where your enemies may not expect you to be and get those kills. Not to mention if you play in a party, it might actually swing matchmaking in your favor as well. It's hard for matchmaking to take a full 6-man party and put you up against another 6-man party. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but when it doesn't, you give yourself better odds of being able to work as a team and crush your enemies in that game. So that said, that's my tips here on how to get better. Again, running down some of the basic stuff out of game, more specific stuff in game, and everything in between. So that's what we're going to call it. But before we do, a quick reminder, check out my friends over at GamerAdvantage. We have talked about them plenty of times here, and their deal in which if you use code Espresso on any pair of glasses, you get $50 in cash back via a gift card to their site. That ends as of tonight. So the last couple of hours here for this, if you're watching this as of tomorrow, the day after it's published or beyond, I do apologize. That deal is no longer available, but their products, absolutely, I will still swear by them. If you work at a desk looking at a monitor, you're on your phone for prolonged periods of time a day, doesn't matter. If you're looking at a screen, you probably know the effects of blue light. I've had to try and combat this for years myself, and GamerAdvantage is head and shoulders above any other blue light glasses company that I've used out there. So if you guys want to learn more, link in the description below. But if you're early to this video and you quickly want to take advantage of the last few hours of this deal, make sure to head on over to the description below and use code Espresso at checkout. So that said, let me know your thoughts down below. Did I miss anything glaring again that you think we could add to this list? Whatever the case, feel free to drop it. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. We're getting all things Modern Warfare 2. We still have so much here up on deck, so make sure you guys are subscribed if you guys want to stay up to date with all of it. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Hope these tips can help you out. Go drop some streaks, and I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.